Whether they're accidents that were left in the final cut or scenes where actors went above and beyond to make sure a moment was captured practically rather than with CGI, I'm Josh from WhatCulture.com, and these are horror movie scenes more real than you think. Jessica Chastain felt like she was drowning in blood. It Chapter 2, despite being A-list actors working on a sequel to one of the most successful horror movies ever made, the adult cast of It Chapter 2 was still put in sticky situations. James McAvoy in particular injured himself doing his own stunts and took months to fully heal after production wrapped. One difficult scene to film you might not know was actually shot for real though comes in a sequence where Jessica Chastain's Beverly is nearly drowned in a pool of blood. As a bathroom quickly fills with the red stuff, Bev struggles to avoid going under. Now you might have just assumed that this was simply filmed in a pool with the water's colour being changed via CGI in post-production. However, the effect was actually achieved in camera and with over 5,000 gallons of fake blood. As Chastain recalled, the sequence was rehearsed with regular water initially, but the eventual substance substituted for the blood was much thicker, more difficult to act in, and of course impossible to see through if she became submerged. Fortunately, the actress was never in any real danger, but she did say that Bev's desperation in the film reflected her own while filming, as she struggled with the rising liquid and worried that nobody would know if something went wrong. Robert Pattinson got drunk and peed himself. The Lighthouse. Director Robert Eggers is all about authenticity, to the point where even the spoons are period authentic in The Lighthouse. A horror flick all about two lighthouse keepers slowly going insane as they give in to isolation, the elements, booze, and a Lovecraftian monster in the light itself. The production was understandably tough on lead actors Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson, with both characters spending most of the second half of the movie completely pissed up on alcohol. Rather than try to fake it, Pattinson himself spent most of his time on set blackout drunk. In order to get the most authentic performance possible, the actor admitted that he was quote-unquote basically unconscious the whole time. On top of also quote licking puddles of mud, he also said quote, "I spent most of my time making myself throw up, pissing my pants. It's the most revolting thing. I don't know, maybe it's really annoying." End quote. His antics informed the friction between the characters in the story as well, as Dafoe didn't have to fake his antagonism due to being genuinely furious with Pattinson's gross behaviour, and at one point even considered walking off set because he thought his co-star was going to throw up on him for real. Robert Downey Jr. broke Halle Berry's arm. Gothika. Considering it took a critical beating at the time, Gothika actually has a pretty neat premise, following a psychiatrist played by Halle Berry who suddenly finds herself institutionalized in the very place she works. Robert Downey Jr. plays a former co-worker who's now in charge of her treatment, which, as you can imagine, doesn't go smoothly. Adamant that she doesn't belong there, the character's resistance to her imprisonment results in some intense physical scenes involving Downey Jr. and Berry, which was sometimes as violent in real life as they looked in the flick. In one particular sequence, Downey Jr. accidentally grabbed Berry's arm at the wrong angle and outright broke it, something the actress has never forgiven him for to this day, saying that it was something that should never have happened on set. Knowing the real-life roughness involved in the performance certainly makes their interactions early in the movie all the more uncomfortable. Number 6. Pretty much every stunt. Deliverance. Back in the 70s, a lot of movies embraced the lack of regulation and producer oversight to essentially sacrifice the well-being of their actors and stunt performers in pursuit of maximum realism. And nothing embodies that dated philosophy more than Deliverance. While not a straight horror, this movie sees 4 men hounded by rapist murderers while stranded in the wilds of Georgia. It's an intense and unforgiving film, with the deadly game of survival taking place across volatile white water rapids and dangerous woodland. In order to save money and deliver more realistic scares, the actors were also encouraged to do their own stunts, no matter how dangerous they might have been. Consequently, in the majority of scenes that feature characters in peril due to the elements, you can bet their actors didn't have to do much conventional acting. There are plenty of infamous stories of these scenes going wrong, from Burt Reynolds breaking his coccyx during the canoeing sequence, to Ned Beatty needing to be saved by a production hand after nearly drowning. Honestly, it's probably easier to point out the scenes where the actors weren't in real danger. Jane Levy's blood vomit wasn't CGI. Evil Dead, the torment Bruce Campbell and the rest of the cast went through on the Evil Dead movies has become the stuff of horror legend. However, filming on the 2013 remake was reportedly just as grueling. Director Fed Alvarez wanted to veer away from CGI-heavy productions of the time and instead embrace the gritty in-camera nature of the original films. This was great for the movie, but it meant that lead actor Jane Levy had to endure a whole load of punishment. Playing the possessed Mia, Levy endured cold night shoots, including one where she was literally buried alive for weeks on end, completing take after take covered in dirt and with her head in a fake plastic bag. It's perhaps the vomiting blood scene that was the most draining though. At one point, her character violently pukes blood directly into the face of Olivia, and rather than CGI the effect in post-production, it was accomplished in camera by putting a tube down Levy's throat that the blood could stream out of. According to the DVD commentary, this took 4 takes to get right, and Levy herself described the scene as being distressing, as she thought that she was really drowning her co-star. She also stressed how physically difficult it was to have the high pressure of the vomit hitting her mouth and throat as well, making it clear that this was as uncomfortable to film as it was to watch. Ellen Burstyn's cries of pain were real. The Exorcist. Director William Friedkin had plenty of tricks up his sleeve to elicit real fear and panic from his actors on The Exorcist, including turning the set into a freezer and shooting guns unannounced, but one scene involving Ellen Burstyn took this to the next level. One of the most chaotic sequences in the movie is when Burstyn's Chris checks on daughter Reagan, only to find her in full-on possession mode. After being struck by her daughter, Chris is thrown across the room and cries out in pain. After a few takes that had the director unimpressed with the actress's reaction, Burstyn complained to Friedkin that the stuntman was pulling her too hard and that she could get seriously injured. As the stuntman himself tells it, the director then reassured Burstyn that the next take would be softer, but then informed him to yank her even harder. This time around, the actress went flying off her feet and landed on her back, crying out in genuine pain. The scene made it into the final film, and instead of cutting to make sure she was alright, Friedkin just zoomed in for a close-up. The scene cuts off then just before Burstyn told him to turn the effing camera off. Lorenzo Izzo nearly drowned. The Green Inferno. The Green Inferno is not a great movie, but you can't say that the actors and filmmakers involved weren't trying. With this horror, director Eli Roth wanted to make a throwback exploitation film in the vein of Cannibal Holocaust, similarly putting the focus on a cannibalistic tribe our heroes find themselves in the midst of. Like Deliverance though, it's not the villains that pose the biggest threat, but the actual environment where the movie was shot. Lead actress Lorenzo Izzo in particular endured a lot during production, even doing some of her own stunts. Of course, with it being this list, some of these obviously went wrong, including one where she almost drowned while filming a sequence in the river. In a scene that was kept in the actual film, Izzo's character is taken away by the current, but the actor's cries for help and attempts to keep afloat by grabbing hold of a rock were both real. Roth explained in an interview that Izzo actually nearly drowned in this scene, and the production didn't realize that she wasn't acting until it was almost too late. The director also explained how the performances of the other actors were aided by the location too, with each becoming violently ill due to the conditions, while they were also constantly surrounded by dangerous animals. Those are real skeletons. Poltergeist. One of the most infamous horror productions of all time, there are so many creepy stories from the filming of Poltergeist. The most notorious, perhaps, is the use of real skeletons over prop ones in a scene at the end of the film. This arises because it turns out that the supernatural occurrences portrayed in the flick arise because the house our main characters, the Freelings, move into has actually been built on top of a burial ground, and the spirits within have become disturbed. Matriarch Diane comes face to face with one of them in the pool as a skeleton rises up inches from her face. The actress apparently had no idea at the time that the skeletons were from real people rather than dummies, as the production had apparently just picked them up as it turned out to be cheaper than making fake ones in-house. It almost sounds like one of those urban legends that's too good to be true, but in fact it's 100% legit.